My name's Rachel, plain old Rachel, with a job that's about crunching numbers and making sure the balance sheets, well, balance. I've got my head in the budgets most days, but you better believe that doesn't keep me from hoping for a bit more than just debits and credits. For years back, I latched onto Michael's star. He's all ambition and no brakes, running his family's business like it's a race car he's pushing to the limit. This company, it's his mom Elizabeth's baby. She built it brick by brick, and it's like her third kid, after Michael and the dog. Since I come in the picture, I've been Michael's right hand. From the moment the pennies didn't add up till the minute they turned into dollars, I've had his back. He's a good guy, with a good head on his shoulders, always listening to what I've got to say about the company accounts. Liz, that's what I call Elizabeth when I'm not in her face. She's a tough one. She could peel paint with her stare if she wanted. Don't think she ever loved me, but she found a little patch of respect for me. She says as long as Michael's happy and the money's right, then she's all right. Now to the today bits. I pulled my chair closer to my desk and was digging into the books when Michael stormed in, all fire and fury like he'd just caught someone nicking his car. Crashing into my little world of numbers, he threw his jacket on the chair and declared war without so much as a hello. Rachel, we got a problem, a big one. His voice was like a thunderclap. What's up? I asked, without a flinch. Michael had a flair for the dramate. Those pesky auditors are on my back, he growled, thumbing through the sheaf of papers like they'd personally offended him. Tell them to take a number, I quipped. I wasn't about to let them or Michael ruin a perfectly good Thursday. He cracked a smile, though. Sure, and who'll face the music then, you? They're sniffing around Elizabeth's last deal like it's got a bad stench. I sighed. Then we'll give them roses to smell instead. Where's the fire? Point me at it. He relaxed a bit and flopped down across from me. I knew the score. Michael gets the heat, I find the way out. It was a dance we had gotten used to. I need you to look over everything, okay? Can you do that for me, Rachel? His eyes were asking politely, but his tone meant business. You got it, boss, I said, cracking my knuckles. I'll dive in and you'll have those auditors eating out of your hand. The door swung shut behind him, and I was alone again with the ghosts of numbers yet to be tamed. It didn't scare me. The numbers never did. It was only when they didn't add up that my stomach knotted, because those rare times spelled trouble. That was the gauntlet thrown, so I picked it up. The real figures from the deal sat snug on my hard drive, waiting for me. I just had to prove that Liz's deal was squeaky clean. For Michael, for the company, and, hell, for my own peace of mind. So I settled in, glasses perched on my nose, ready to wage war with spreadsheets and bank statements. It was going to be a long night, and the coffee pot was my only ally. Michael hired a new secretary, a bombshell really, and brains weren't her strong suit. Her desk routine was a mess. Her idea of filing was piling papers high enough to block out boredom or any real work. I couldn't deny she had a presence, though, like a walking, talking beauty advert. At Elizabeth's for dinner, it was a small gathering, just Michael, Elizabeth, and me. The clinking of cutlery mixed with the dull hum of the oven in the background as we sat down to eat. You could find someone more capable, I said, pushing a pea around with my fork. Michael gave me a look, his smile flat as weak old soda. Jealous, Rachel? Of Samantha's looks? His tone had a bite, a challenge. My face got hot fast, but not from shame. I was made of sterner stuff. It's about professionalism, Michael, not her assets. That's when Elizabeth cut in, her voice carrying weight as it always did. She's right, Michael. And respect your wife. That's non-negotiable. Elizabeth was old school, a steel magnolia, elegance, with a core of iron. Michael shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, but knowing better than to cross Elizabeth. I didn't mean any offense, Rachel. Samantha just draws in the clients with her charm. Charm? I scoffed. Is that what we're calling it these days? I took a bite of my food, tasting more of my annoyance than the herbs on the chicken. Then there was a knock at the door, a roll of thunder entering the dining room. It was Samantha, the secretary herself, decked out like she was gunning for a spot on a magazine cover instead of a family dinner. "Sorry, I know I'm unexpected," Samantha started, all eyelashes and lipstick. "But Michael, you left your phone at the office." She handed it to him, her fingers brushing his like she was delivering a secret promise. Michael took his phone with a muttered thanks, his eyes darting between me and Elizabeth. Samantha, apparently satisfied with the disruption she caused, swayed out of the room like the queen of disarray she was, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and confusion in her wake. After the door closed behind her, Elizabeth's voice sliced through the silence. "That girl might as well be trouble wrapped in designer threads." I could only nod, my jaw tight enough to press diamonds from coal. The rest of the dinner passed in a strange calm before the storm. Michael tried to steer the conversation to safer waters, but it was like putting a band-aid on a crack in a dam. Months pass, and I can feel the heat in the office rising, like the temperature is set a few notches too high. But it's not the thermostat, it's everything else. The way Samantha struts in every morning, you'd think she owned the place. Today, it's some tight dress that screams cocktail hour, not 9 to 5. I can't help myself. Attire for the office, not the opera, Samantha, I grumble as she breezes by my desk. She halts, pivots on a heel, and smirks. "Well, not everyone has to hide their figure, Rachel." Her words hit like a punch to the gut. She knows she's got the kind of curves that cause a ruckus, and she doesn't mind flaunting them, especially not around Michael. I turn back to my screen, hoping my cheeks aren't too red. I feel the eyes on me, the whispers that burrow under my skin like ticks. They're eating this drama up, bit by juicy bit. I catch a glimpse of Samantha leaning over Michael's desk, laughing a bit too loud at something undoubtedly not funny. Michael's eating it up, the idiot. There's a smirk on his face that makes my fingers itch to wipe it right off. I hear them making plans to leave together, their voices a mix of excitement and hushed tones. The whispers around me crescendo. The shared rides home we used to enjoy, chatting about nonsense or sometimes in comfortable silence, they're history now. It's all Samantha, all the time. Lunchtime becomes a solo act. I grab my sandwich and sit at the corner table, pretending not to notice the gap that's grown since Samantha arrived. It feels like I'm sitting in no man's land, while everyone else is at the cool table. Later, I confront Michael in the break room. He's sipping a coffee, looking relaxed. Too relaxed. "So, this thing with Samantha, what's that about?" I ask, trying to sound casual. "Oh, come on, Rachel. It's nothing. We're just colleagues," Michael says, with a shrug that's supposed to be convincing. "Friends don't look at each other like that, Michael," I insist, crossing my arms. "You're not fooling anyone." "There are whispers, Michael." He laughs, a harsh sound that scrapes against my patience. "Oh, please. There's always office gossip. Grow a thicker skin." I leave the break room, leaving Michael with his so-called advice and his arrogance. The words bounce around my head, grow a thicker skin. Right. Because that solves everything. One day I went into Michael's office to get the documents. What I saw felt like a jab to the chest. There they were. Michael and Samantha hugging each other, his arm tight around her waist like she's some sort of prize he won. Michael stammers, looking like he's just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Samantha wears this smug grin like she's got one over on me. "Really, Michael?" I said, my voice cut through the silence like a knife. "This is what's been going on." Michael's face was dripping with sweat, his shirt collar soaked. "It's not what it looks like," he says, his voice all shaky like he's trying to convince himself more than me. Samantha, still standing there with that irritating smile, says, "Calm down, it's just a hug." "Just a hug?" I snapped back. "And I suppose you just happened to fall into his arms, right?" Michael tried to butt in, his hands up as if trying to stop a bullet. "Listen, we were just..." I turned on my heel, not wanting to show them how much it hurt. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps on the expensive office carpet. Wait, let's talk about this. Please. I only stopped when I reached my office, turned the lock with a click that sounded like finality. I leaned against the door, the solid wood against my back feeling like the only steady thing in that moment. I didn't want the whole place listening in on the drama. I kept my voice even, almost cool. Michael, what do you want from me? To stand here and take this? Listen, he began, whispering through the crack where the door met the frame. It's a misunderstanding, that's all. I scoffed at that weak excuse. Misunderstanding? I said, louder now. I know what I saw. I could see his shadow moving back and forth under the door. He was pacing, a dead man walking. I could hear him muttering, trying to string together the right words as if they'd work like some magic spell. I sat at my desk, cold metal against my fingers while I thought about all the lies, all the late nights I'd been a fool to believe were for work. A knot tightened in my gut. Everything was clear now. I wasn't going to stick around to be played for a fool. After a while, the pacing stopped, and the shadow under my door disappeared. I wasn't going to be interrupted anymore. I didn't need an explanation, none would be good enough, and I sure didn't need the rumor mill of the office spinning tales about my personal life. The rest of the day was just a blur. Papers, phone calls, the clack of keyboards, it all mixed together in a meaningless cacophony. The real noise was in my head, the voice telling me I'd been blind. I remember the evening air was still when Michael stumbled through the door. His steps were uneven, loud in the timid quiet of the living room. Rachel, he started, his voice had a jittery pitch, like the buzzing of a faulty light. Samantha's pregnant, he blurted out. I felt my heart splinter, but my face didn't flinch. So, that's it then? I asked, my voice barren of the warmth it used to carry for him. Yeah, I guess it is, Michael replied, rubbing the back of his neck like he always did when cornered. His eyes didn't meet mine. Look, Rachel, I'm done. You're just not exciting anymore. I want a divorce. My throat was dry, felt like it was stuffed with cotton. Fine, I said, the word cutting the air like a knife. Silence stretched between us, aching and dense. He shuffled his feet, clearly wanting to escape. So, that's it, you're just going to let me go? Michael's voice had a scornful edge, but underneath it was surprise, maybe even disappointment. That's it, I replied flatly, every word laced with the ice that had settled in my chest. All right, then. He turned and walked out, taking no more than a suitcase and leaving a whirlwind of broken vows behind. I stood motionless, the ghost of our love story wilting in the gathering dusk. Then I reached for the phone, my hand steady as I dialed Elizabeth's number. It's Rachel. I need help. We talked about a lot of things, and when she hung up, I know what I needed to do next. The silence felt different now. It was the quiet of a starting line, the hush before the storm. With newfound purpose, I began to gather Michael's things, stuffing them into bags with a ferocity that was foreign yet fitting. Every piece of fabric was a testament to a lie I'd lived, an illusion I'd cherished. Not anymore. He'd called me dull, said I wasn't exciting. But as I looked around at the life I was about to dismantle, a flicker of something feral twisted in my gut. I wasn't dull, never had been. I was just misplaced. Now, there I was, bags packed with the remnants of a defunct marriage, standing in the dimming light of my living room. And you know what? There was something exciting about the emptiness, something thrilling about the vast unknown stretching out before me. The morning was crack of dawn early, and the air in the office was still. I pushed open the door to the place I'd spent countless hours crunching numbers and biting my tongue. Not today. Today, the papers tucked under my arm felt like the heaviest weights, yet they made my steps lighter. I found Samantha lounging behind her desk, nails clicking away on her phone like some pampered cat sharpening its claws. Took you long enough? She smirked without looking up. Thought I'd have to send out a search party or a pink slip. Ignoring her, I walked straight into Michael's office, the door flung wide open. He was there, looking like the king of Jack-all, feet kicked up on the desk that he barely deserved to sit behind. "Rachel, what do you want?" Michael barked, scrambling to sit upright. I slapped the papers on his desk. "Your world's about to turn to crap, Michael," I said, keeping my voice steady. He picked up the stack with a shaky hand. "What is this?" His voice had that high-pitched squeak, one I recognized when he was worried. "Your ticket out. Have a nice read," I said coolly. Samantha had stalked in, the click of her heels an annoying reminder of her presence. "What's she on about now, Michael?" she sneered, leaning over his shoulder. "Don't tell me you still haven't fired her?" Michael leafed through the files, his face draining of color. "These are fake," he managed, but his voice had lost its bluster. "It's not fake, Michael," I shot back. "Turns out your darling Samantha is dirty. Check out the expense reports. She's been skimming cash, writing it off as your representation expenses. Who knew office supplies could be so lavish?" "This is slander." Samantha's voice was high enough to shatter glass. And that's when Elizabeth walked in, her step silent but her presence filling the room like a storm cloud. "Enough," she intoned, and her single word clipped through our argument like a scythe. Michael turned to her, whining, "Mother, she's lying. Tell her, Samantha." Elizabeth didn't flinch. "You're dismissed, Michael." Her voice was final, the kind that slammed doors shut and ended discussions. Michael sunk into his chair, his face ashen. "Mom, please. I'm your son. You can't." "I can and I have." Elizabeth stood, unwavering. It was like the whole room held its breath, even Samantha. And then she laughed. It was a sound that could curdle milk. "Guess the show's over, Michael," she taunted, tossing the papers on his desk like they were trash. "Time to let you in on a secret, lover boy. I'm not pregnant. And me, love you? Hoolies." Michael looked like he'd been slapped with a wet fish. "You said? You promised." "Yeah, well, that was before your mommy here fired you," Samantha sneered. "Face it, you were just a stepping stone, Michael. And now, you're more like a pebble." "That's enough, Samantha," I cut in, sick of her voice. Her eyes fixed on me, and the sarcasm thickened. "Oh, look at Rachel, the savior. You think you're special?" Her laugh was cruel. "You're as pathetic as he is. Only Rachel could love a loser like Michael." The room was thick with betrayal, shock, and a hint of victory, mine. Funny how the tables turned. Only today, the last laugh was on me. Samantha tried to leave, only to was stopped by Elizabeth. "Return the money," she demanded in a tone that froze my blood in my veins. "Listen, Elizabeth, I swear I'll pay it back," Samantha stuttered, her back against the wall. Her hands trembled. "I can get a loan or something." "Loan or something, huh?" Elizabeth snorted, her eyes icy slits. "Damn right you will. Or else you'll find out just how bad things can get." Okay, I get it. I messed up big time," Samantha stammered, looking everywhere but into Elizabeth's cold stare. Michael shifted in his armchair, the creak of the leather breaking the harsh silence. He ran his hand through his hair and let out a ragged sigh. "Mom, Sam, I don't want you to." "Shut it, Michael," I snapped from across the room. It was hard to watch him, a grown man, so close to weeping over his own mess. "You've done enough talking." Elizabeth turned on her heel, pointing a stern finger at Michael. "You're as much to blame. Giving her access to the funds like it's play money." "I trusted her." Michael's voice cracked. "Trust?" Elizabeth laughed, short and scornful. "Trust is earned, not handed out like candy, you fool." "I didn't want to steal, but I just got in too deep," Samantha choked out, her eyes darting nervously. I stayed quiet, leaning against the doorframe with crossed arms. Elizabeth didn't need backup to handle this, she was storm enough all on her own. Samantha slumped, defeated. "I'll figure it out. I just need time. Time is the one thing you don't have, girlie, Elizabeth snapped. I want that money back, and I want it yesterday. I'll get it. Somehow. Samantha's voice waned to a feeble whisper. Elizabeth's look softened just a hair. You better. Because if you think this is bad, jail will eat you alive. As Samantha scurried out, a harried mess of guilt and fear, Michael sank back into his chair, face buried in his hands. Elizabeth turned her back on him. She had no comfort to give. The room fell silent after the storm, heavy with the weight of consequences. Michael's mumbling apologies hung limp in the air, as ignored as distant thunder. We all knew the size of the hole we were in. It was time to start digging ourselves out. The paperwork was a nightmare, a jungle of legalese and signatures that felt like they'd never end. Somewhere between signing away my marriage and dissolving my professional ties, Elizabeth dropped the bombshell. Stay, Rachel. Help run this company. She said it so matter-of-factly you'd think she was asking me to pass the salt. I looked at her, incredulous. Are you serious? I replied, my tone edged with raw surprise. You know what went down here. You saw the wreckage. She leaned back in her chair, eyes unreadable as always. I know, she admitted, but we could turn it around. You got guts and know-how. I can handle the board. Think about it. I wanted to laugh. Wanted to, because the idea was ludicrous, yet there I was, actually mulling it over. Turning the place around wasn't a one-woman job, and hell, I knew the ins and outs of this godforsaken place better than anyone. I locked eyes with Elizabeth, long enough to let the gravity of the situation sink in. You can't be serious, I finally said, but my voice lacked conviction. The truth was, something in me thrived on challenges, on proving people wrong. As a heart attack, she fired back, no hint of jest lurking in her gaze. Join me. What else you gonna do? Go back to Michael, who's groveling at your feet? I scoffed, shaking my head. No way in hell I'm going back to that. Visions of Michael's face, all puppy dog eyes and wilted pride, came to mind. He can wait till hell freezes over for all I care. Elizabeth smirked, that's my girl. It wasn't a term of endearment by any means. In this jungle, it was the call of one lioness to another, acknowledging the coming hunt. So I stayed. Together, we rolled up our sleeves and clawed through the mess. Day in and day out, we navigated through the crapstorm, her iron will and my relentless drive, combining into a force to be reckoned with. And Michael? He became a ghost, drifting on the edges of my new life. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of him, lurking, a shadow of man who'd lost his gambit. Part of me might have felt a sliver of sympathy, but I had a company to resurrect. Elizabeth and I had one last showdown with the board. The old boys didn't know what hit 'em. We walked into that room, reports in hand, sharp as knives. I remember the head of the board, a slippery named Jenkins, trying to undermine us with some comment. You ladies sure you want to keep playing in the big leagues? He chuckled, a chorus of wheezing laughs echoing him. Elizabeth shot him a look that could curdle milk. Playing? Jenkins, we rewrote the damn rulebook. Now, sit down, shut up, and watch how it's done. We laid out our strategy, outlined our successes to date, and projected the future with such precision even Jenkins couldn't find a foothold for his snide remarks. Walking out of there, I couldn't help but feel a wildfire of triumph roaring through my veins. We'd conquered, and the climb was brutal, but damn, the view from the top was something else. As for redemption? That's a long road, best walked alone. Michael would have to find his own way because as the sun set on the old company and rose on the new, I'd found mine, right alongside an ally no one, including myself, would have ever expected.